We are on a roll. All right. So I decided I was kind of thinking about what to talk about, and being that it's February and there's a lot going on, I decided, why not talk about love? So that seems like such an elusive topic, and at the same time, there's so many different levels to it, and um, it's something that I have been thinking about because lots of things, obviously have happened, and with all the speakers that I've had on too, we've kind of talked about it in different ways and different uh, intensities, different levels, different types. And so I thought it might be interesting to just kind of put this out there, and feel free to jump in if you have some comments or questions. I'd love to hear from you. But this is kind of my take. I'm going to again just talk about the definition of love. There's two different definitions, and then the different types of love, and then go into kind of the dimensions of unconditional love that I've put together. It's kind of a work in progress, and then provide some suggestions about, how is it that this can be cultivated, because it is something that I have noticed that exists on different levels, and well, when we get to that, you will see. So, as a noun, this is taken from the dictionary, the Merriam-Webster dictionary. And again, I don't know, this is something I would like to look into, is the origin of Merriam-Webster's dictionary. But anyway, so as a noun, there are so many different ways of defining love as a noun. And so I just kind of listed them up here because I think it's important to recognize that when we're talking about this word, it can be used in so many different ways. And also recognizing that it's not just used as a noun, it's also used as a verb. So there is an action piece to it and also an object piece to it, which implies so many different things. And then this is the verb definition as well. And so, when we kind of think about love, as an action, we're looking at, how do we thrive in it? How do we hold it? How do we feel it, or take pleasure in it? And then when we look at it as an object, how do we have this kind of attraction to something or with something else, this kind of attachment or whatnot with this other person or thing or whatever. And that could happen with anything too. I mean, I'm often thinking about, with substance use disorders, that's something that occurs for individuals, right? Or even like individuals. And when we talk about like love as like romantic love, there is also like this very much of a chemical origin to it too. So it's interesting to note that there is a biological occurrence that occurs, and then that actually changes over time for a lot of people. But these are some synonyms that exist, and I, specifically like wrote down these particular ones because there's quite a few different synonyms, mind you. These are just specific ones that I chose, for the purposes of this presentation, because of the fact that in talking about love, I was really kind of focused on, what are some ways that people can really embody this experience and have it more present in their life? Because I think when it's hard to feel that or see it, it's hard to embody it. It's really hard to experience that. And one of the words that I really liked is to savor. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this came out many years ago, but it was oh my goodness, the science of well-being. It was a Harvard project, or a Yale project, sorry, that came out, and it was a course online that it had like so many different people enrolled in it at the university that they eventually made it into an online course. And so I ended up taking it. And in this, the facilitator, the professor, presents a lot of research, related to these aspects of well-being. And one of the things that she talks about is savoring. And that's not something that we have normally talked about, in really in any kind of respect, is this art of savoring. And so I thought that was an interesting component, in relation to when we say that we love something, like when people say, "Oh, I love this particular food," or "I love um, having a certain kind of meal or something." There is this kind of savoring the experience, really being in it, really enjoying that moment, really embodying that moment. That is part of that process. And so I thought that was a particular importance because it's not a word that we typically use in relation to love. But yet it's very synonymous with it too. And so these are all different kinds of words that kind of relate to love in a different intensity or a different level of it. And I found that intriguing only because of the fact that, normally when we think about love, we all have this kind of preconceived notion of what that looks like. And yet at the very same time, there are so many different levels and so many different intensities and so many different textures to love that I think is important to also give some space for in terms of, well, how can we bring that more into our not just day-to-day experience, but even in our interactions that we have, like with ourselves, with other people, with just general life, because that really allows us to be a little bit more present and show up differently. And I think that also has kind of like a ripple effect. And so, the idea with it is recognizing that these are different things that it can look like. So these are the different types of love that exist. This is based on Greek classification. And I put these up here because we often don't, I mean, I have heard of these before. I don't know if anybody else has heard of these before. Has anybody else ever heard of these different love
Mhm.
types?
A few of them,
A
yes.
few of them? Okay.
Mhm.
Hi, Cheryl. How are you?
Good, thank you, Serena. Good.
So these are, I mean, these are common types of love that the Greeks have identified, and we've seen them, and we've have experiences with them, and most of you, know of these too. You've had experiences with them. Eros is the passionate kind of romantic love, and I'm going to mispronounce these, so I'm not going to necessarily say them because I do not want to uh, necessarily butcher the names. But the next one is the goodwill kind of love that you might feel for someone else, like for another fellow human being. You have family love, someone that's of kin, someone that you may relate to or consider family. It doesn't even have to necessarily be someone that's blood related. It could be someone that you just consider to be a part of your family, that you feel this affection for or this feeling for. And then you have this agape, this universal love. That exists. And this could be more like for everybody, this kind of unconditional, altruistic existence that exists. And I know Erica had put a comment in the comment box, which I do not have available right now, but because she cannot, God gives agape love. Yes. So God gives, that is that kind of altruistic and unconditional type of love that exists. You have this other love, which is playful, kind of, this flirtatious kind of love. It could be flirtatious in an innocent kind of way, but it can also be playful in terms of, how you just kind of have fun, or enjoy things, and when you think about play, even in general, it is like play in and of itself does not have an agenda. There is no like outcome that's expected. It is simply the art of just enjoyment, so to speak. You have this practical kind of love, which is more based on it looks good, or it seems to fit for practical reasons. And so the idea with it is that there's some sort of like matching. And when I was reading the description of this, I really thought about like arranged marriages or people that marry because of practical reasons, like it just makes sense to them. And so there may not be necessarily this kind of passion involved in their relationship, and yet there's practical reasons that two people are together. And so that is what this type of love looks like. And then this last type of love is the self-love that one has, which is, the just love towards the self, which is not one that we talk about it a lot, and yet I don't know if we necessarily know about it too much or cultivate it as much as it's talked about. So one of the things that given like all that, one of the things that I've been kind of putting together and thinking about is like, what really does this look like? And so I put together, this is just kind of my own work theory in progress kind of a thing, but I really kind of have put together this unconditional love, which has these kind of 5 different dimensions. And based on, these different types of love, but really a combination of, what really does this core love look like? And one of the things that I've noticed, and this is in my work with clients, even in my own experiences, things that I've read about and things that I've written about and things I'm writing about too, is that there is this kind of core piece to it, that when this unconditional love does not exist in the core of the self, the foundation, pretty much, that it's really challenging and often a struggle for people to have that, or to demonstrate it, or to experience that kind of going outward. It is an inward to an outward experience kind of thing. And just in being present with this, it's kind of like whatever is kind of inside is projected on the outside. And a lot of times it is, there's lots of different pieces that talk about how the world can be a reflection of your inner world when you are observing it and paying attention. And so really looking at, okay, well, what does that mean? And so here, these are just kind of the different dimensions. And I look at it as like a 5-point star kind of a thing. Like this is the core of it is essentially the self, and that each point is one of these different aspects. So one is that, unconditional love is sensual, and that's a very different experience for most people, because most of the time people think more of like sexual love, which is not what this is about. And what comes to mind for me, I think about like the Kama Sutra, for example. It is not just based on sexuality. It is based on the experience of tantric energy, which is a very different type of energy and a very different experience that exists for people when it is sensual. So it is not objectified. It is something that is very subjective and very unconditional. And it involves the senses, hence the experience of sensual. It's senses. It's not an object per se, but it really just allows a person to kind of explore and experience their body, their energy, their being, so to speak, from a sense perspective, right? And then the second part is this play, and this involves like exploration, which is about really curiosity and imagination and fun, which was one of the, this playfulness, one of the different types of love that exists. And then we have innocence. And what comes to mind with innocence is this sense of being unstruck. And what I think of when I think of innocence is in the chakras, the fourth chakra talks about, the fourth chakra is about love. And the meaning of anahata, which is the fourth chakra, is unstruck. And essentially what that means is that it is like this innocence of, having this experience for the first time. Like you have not been afflicted with betrayal, right? Or grief, or you're experiencing something with newness or with awe or something, which is not something that that's what innocence is when you think about that, right? Children have this innocence. They experience things for the first time, hopefully without trauma. And yet it's like there's this awe that they experience with like, I mean, the amount of time that a child can spend with certain things, it's like amazing to me, but just the curiosity and the awe is phenomenal. And so that's really what this kind of unstruck is about. It's like, it's a fresh kind of different, like, wow, that's like a whole new world has opened up. There's this curiosity sense, which involves exploration and observation, which is, awareness, basically. It's about, looking at the facts and also exploring, the what's and the hows of whatever this is that's happening. And it's not necessarily just being a subjective experience, but it's having like this kind of this balance towards it, so it's not conditional in that respect, right? Like, because subjectiveness brings a lot of bias to it without bringing evidence. And so that's part of, balancing that out, is that there is some sort of neutralizing to it. Unconditional love is really about, there is no conditions attached to this. It's just kind of exists in its own vacuum, so to speak. And then there's safety, which basically means that there's free from harm. That's free from harm from oneself, from another, from a general sense of whatever's around the person or experience. And so that involves this kind of respect and some patience, a sense of protection, and it's more of this kind of a feeling of safety, regardless of what's present, that there is this kind of, okay, I know that I am still okay, so to speak. So there's these different dimensions, that make up perhaps this unconditional, and this again is not anything that's researched or, you know, anything. It is just my own perspective on this, but I'm very curious to hear thoughts from you all. If you have some thoughts you'd like to share on this, and I'd be very interested to hear. Anybody want to share any thoughts?
Yeah, I will. I'll share something.
Okay.
I initially, I was thinking about, when you first started talking, I was thinking about my husband, and then as we have talked, or as you have talked a little bit more and more and more, my thinking kind of shifted a little bit to a friend of mine, and it's more a male friend. It's more of the uh, pragmatic and the playful type of friendship. No, none of the eros. It's just the we're just good friends
Yeah.
and have been for about 30 years, but we just are connected in friendship.
Hmm.
And I see the qualities that you've written down. I i absolutely can relate to what you're saying with all these different the different aspects.
Oh,
So, but it was kind of interesting, to me even, that I went from love for one person and then love for another person in a totally different way, but
yeah.
still a love.
Right. And it's an unconditional experience that
Yes,
you're
yes,
having, that
yes.
that you can have these different pieces and still feel this unconditional love.
Hmm.
And they're two separate people.
Completely, yes. And two different types of
Right.
love. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
And
I
but
appreciate you
just as
sharing that.
valid.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely, just
Hmm.
as valid,
Hmm.
and I appreciate you sharing that because that's how I mean, yeah, that subjective feeling is not necessarily part of it because all these other experiences that you have present are really providing that for you too, where you feel all of these different pieces that allow you to have a subjective feeling. And that's going to look different depending on the relationship.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's absolutely right. Yes.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Does anybody else want to share anything, any thoughts that they may have? All right.
If you
Wow.
keep relapsing, you lose your love of your life.
Oh, who- who's that?
Just a comment.
Just, is that Erica?
Yes.
Yes.
And every time I keep talking now, I keep coughing crazy. So
Oh, I'm so sorry.
it's time for my cough pearls. Sorry,
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking when you were going through it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, but I mean, but again, you're describing like a love that you have for one object, right? Which is all of these different things. And then the love that you have for somebody else that has all of these different things and how they're very, very different experiences.
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And that kind of also, for lack of a better term, sucks because of how it
Thanks.
plays
Yes.
out. I mean, just how it plays out for you like that. I'm I'm so sorry that that happens.
Thanks.
Um, and yeah, yeah, okay. Um, does anybody else have any other comments that they want to make or any experiences that they relate to?
Well, one of the things, if I could just kind of
Yeah,
quickly,
yeah,
that I've told and I kind of hang on to is you have to love yourself first.
yeah,
And you listed, you identified the types of love, and the very last one being self love. But I think that one would be the um, the the love that you would have to have first
yeah.
before you could, have any of the others. So.
Yeah, yes. And what a great segue into the next slide. So I appreciate you saying that. I did not pay her to say that, just so you all know. But these are different things that you could do. Wait a minute, this is not the one. This is the one. I mean, this essentially is what you were talking about. Like there's this kind of foundational experience of what, is this kind of, you know, foundation that we create or is created, but then you do start with the self, the core, which is the foundation plus things that you do for yourself for that self-love. And then to get to others, right? The love that you have with others, that connection, it is the foundation plus the self plus these other things that you do. So you know, like you said, I mean, I agree with you that you do need to have that core experience of love in order to kind of bridge that connection with other people, because otherwise it's very challenging to have that with other people. And that can look very different, you know, for people too, depending on, you know, where they're coming from, what the foundation looks like, you know, but some ideas presented here, and I'm curious to hear people's thoughts about this is, you know, foundationally, you know, to kind of start or begin or create or build on, however you want to look at it, you know, is cultivating some sort of practice, excuse me, looking for opportunities, being empathic, you know, being curious, finding common ground, you know, with kind of anything that's around you, is really looking at kind of what is common with myself and this or that, you know, as kind of a way to start building that. You know, clarifying and simplifying things, you know, being consistent, following through, kindness, respect, forgiveness, those are kind of foundational. And then, you know, having this foundational starting point is when people can then have this core look at, okay, now that I can understand what these kind of foundational pieces are, now I want to start doing this shadow work, or starting to reflect more, or starting to clarify what's important to me, or developing a routine where I'm building on these foundational pieces to keep that experience of core love, that love that I have for myself. And then once that kind of is establishing or has been established, there's this then piece of connecting with other people. So you have like this connection with self and then connection with other people. Whoops. Where then people, you can then do these things that help connect with other people as well. And there's, you know, just different things that people can do, being supportive, not enabling, you know, letting other people cut in front of you in traffic, or, you know, doing random acts of kindness, ways that you connect with people, mailing a card to somebody, showing people that you appreciate them or that you're actively listening to them, you know, just connecting, so to speak. And so those are just different ideas that come up, you know, in terms of demonstrating or showing love to self or others, different ways that that can be done. So I'm curious if anybody has any thoughts or comments. I know we only got a couple minutes left, so I want to kind of give some space if people have any thoughts about that. No?
The
I
the
know
only
it's a lot.
could really speak on is the connection with the last one.
Mhm.
I think you want to do something for people, even the small acts of kindness, like letting somebody in front of you in line, whether it's grocery store or traffic or whatever. But I'm sure everybody is affected this way, but I always feel good that I've done that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, so I know there's what was it, the argument about altruism. It's
Okay.
you still you still do it because it makes you feel good. So
Yes.
is it truly altruistic? Well, yes, I still think it is. Feeling good about it, though, is just the benefit of it. But I don't think, all right, I'm sure that people don't really do things like that just so they can feel good. They do it because they want to be nice or kind or generous to somebody else, just
Yeah.
in a small way. So, I don't know. Um, I kind of like the connection part.
Yeah, no, I mean there's a lot of yeah, I mean there's arguments for and against that, but I think the altruism piece is that you are doing that to help another person. And by seeing somebody else benefiting from your act of kindness, it does make you feel good.
Mhm.
I mean, it's hard not to feel good about that.
Right,
I mean, you're not gonna, I mean, I don't know very many people that experience negativity because of that. So yes, I mean, I agree with you in that respect, that there is it's more altruistic, like it's
Mhm.
more done for the purpose.
And you do it for another person more so than for yourself. I think
Right.
that's very, very secondary. But yeah.
Yeah, and very much, yes, it's very much, and the benefit, like you said, of doing that act. Mhm. Yes, and so those are the references that, sources where I got this information from. All right. Does anybody have any other thoughts before we wrap up? No? All right. Well, thank you all for being here today. I hope you got something, and we will be back in 2 weeks. So have a good rest of your couple weeks or night and couple weeks. And yes, I'm glad warmer weather is coming to Chicago. So
Thank you, Serena.
thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.